Mark Lamont Hill and Ben Ferguson. Hello to you, gentlemen. Ben, to you first. What do you make of the remarks?
I think these are a lot more in line with what an attorney general should say than what he said on Sunday when he said that there is a lot of people that don't like Eric Holder and Barack Obama because they're African American, and says when people say things like take our country back, there are obviously racial undertones to that. That's where I think he went a little bit off the reservation. I mean, Hillary Clinton, when she was running against Barack Obama, said it's time we take our country back, and you didn't see Barack Obama or Eric Holder or anybody else claim that she was being racist when she said that. And so I think there's some politics in this. The way he described it today, I think, was much more responsible from an attorney general and not trying to make things about a race war when, in fact, he's saying there are people that are vulnerable that include the LGBT community and the elderly. That is what an attorney general should be saying.
Yeah. So just so he didn't say that a lot of people. He said some people. So, and I think context is everything.
Well,
when it comes
but
to
I
this
think
particular story.
Right, but I think the core is, on Sunday, it was certainly he was trying to talk about, how he and President Barack Obama,
okay, wait, let me stop you there. He wasn't trying to talk about it. It was a wide-ranging interview on a number of topics, and he was asked about race, and he responded to questions about race. So it wasn't that he brought the subject up himself. A reporter asked him a question.
Well, of course not. When you're being interviewed, you don't bring up the subjects. I mean, that's obvious. But he had no problem going there, and he had no problem pushing that agenda.
Right. Well, I think that's exactly what an attorney general is supposed to do. They're supposed to be honest and truthful. And if someone asks a question about racism, I think you have to take it head on. What makes today's comments more palatable to people is because he's not discussing anti-black racism specifically. He's not talking about white supremacy specifically. But both of those things are elements that Eric Holder was referring to over the weekend. When you talk about the language of take our country back, you're right. It does depend on who says it. When Hillary Clinton is saying take our country back, she's saying take it away back from corporate interests, take it back from an ultra-conservative right, etc. When the Tea Party narrative says...
But if a conservative says that they're racist...
No, Ben, what I'm saying is that a text without a context is a pretext. You can't just say, it's just like when I say black power, I'm talking about a very particular thing. I'm talking about self-definition, self-determination, and beauty. When someone says white power, they're often in the Ku Klux Klan. Black and white aren't opposite sides of the same coin. Politics does matter. Context does matter. And when people say take our country back, if they're saying take it back from the crazy liberals, I'm cool with that. But if you're saying take our country back and you're invoking a nostalgic narrative for the good old days of the 1800s and 1900s, those days weren't so good for black people. And so oftentimes when people say take our country back, they're saying taking it back from black people, take it back from people getting social assistance, taking back the social safety net, all of which have racial...
Let me ask you this. There's a part of this, though, that has come up that I think we should be talking about, and that is if a Republican candidate says it's time to take our country back, there are a lot of people automatically say, oh, they're racist. They're going back to racist tendencies. Hillary Clinton says it against an African-American who she's running against, named Barack Obama, a senator at the time. Nobody bats an eye to it, and I think that's the double standard of race baiting, where if a Republican says it's somehow racist.
This is where I say that context is everything. If you're going to say take our country back, then you should explain exactly what that means if you know that it causes tension and that it's become a buzz phrase, right, by saying take our country back. What is wrong with the Attorney General responding to a question about race by saying that some people, not all, he said, and he says, I don't think that's the majority of people, but there are some people in this country who oppose the president because of his color. Well, considering the history of this country, it would be disingenuous to think otherwise.
I think the issue is this. If you want to be a community activist, if you want to run for office, then by all means go into that. But when you're the Attorney General of the United States of America, you're supposed to be above the fray and to say, look, my job as the Attorney General is to make sure that everyone, regardless of their color of their skin, regardless of their political viewpoints, regardless of their background, has a fair day and a fair chance in the United States of America. That's what the Attorney General's job is. And when you start coming out and saying, well, if you say that towards, and you're Republican, implying that means you're a racist, I don't think that's the place that the Attorney General should ever go.
That's not what he said, Ben. That is not what he said. Okay, Ben, let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question. Do you think that there are people out there who oppose President Obama just because of his policies?
Absolutely, and that's happened towards every president.
Why is it unfathomable for you to believe that there are some people who oppose the president just because of his color?
I didn't I don't believe that. I do think there's people that don't like anybody out there. Look, there are people right now that are watching that don't like me because I'm white and a conservative, and they will tweet that at me. That is some people out there. There are people out there that don't like me because they say that's a white guy on TV, he's conservative, I don't like him, and he doesn't like Barack Obama. I don't like Barack Obama's policies. But I don't think that you automatically go to the issue of race when someone disagrees with you. People disagreed with, let me finish this. People disagreed with Bill Clinton. People disagreed with Bill Clinton, and no one said it was because they didn't like him because of race. They didn't like him because of his policies. The same with Al Gore, the same with John Kerry, the same with all these other guys that ran as Democrats. Hillary Clinton said against an African American.
That doesn't make sense.
And
because he is African American. You cannot say, okay, well, you know, he's not. Those people aren't African American. That element does not apply to them because they're not African American.
Then let me ask you this, Don. Why didn't people bring it up against Hillary Clinton when she said it?
She's not black.
She said it about a black man.
This is an absurd conversation, and much of this is just a straw man that has been erected for the last 2 days. The truth of the matter is everyone has conceded the point that some people don't like Barack Obama because he's black, that some people don't like Eric Holder because he's black, including Ben just now. Yet somehow when Eric Holder was asked that very question, he's being criticized. It's almost as if you're saying he should have lied or said, I'm not going to answer the question. He just answered the question honestly, and the truth is we have to accept that there's a world where some people aren't liked. And you know what? Bill Clinton didn't say that that some people dislike him because he's white, because no one ever asks him the question. Barack Obama is facing a unique set of racial circumstances, as is Eric Holder, and that's why he's answering the questions differently than other presidents, because they're asking different questions and because he's facing, again, different circumstances. It's really that simple.
That's it. Love talking to you guys. Love you, mean it. Thank you. Thanks, Ben. Thanks, Ben. Thanks, Mark. See you guys next time. All right, a new